Welcome back for episode 12 of The Pulse, where we go through posts on the arm wrestling subreddit, which is effectively a big forum where people talk arm wrestling. We're going to cover some pop culture topics, and then we get into some questions from members over there. They have questions on training, if you're new, if you're injured, all kinds of stuff we get into. Questions from members over there. Linn is going to be joining us shortly, so stay tuned for that, and we're going to get his input on a lot of questions. And of course, the show is hosted by yours truly, Ryan Turner, and the magnificent, the wonderful, with a big super match coming up at East versus West 9, Derek Smith.
Yo! What's up? What's going on, YouTube? Thank you guys for tuning in. Yeah, a little bit late. It's all my fault. I'm being serious. I'll be transparent. Everything is my fault, as always. I fell asleep. I was supposed to send Paul Linn the link, and I sent it to him late, and it's all my fault. It's 100% my fault. Paul Linn is the man. He's just getting connected right now. He's ready to join the show. So my bad once again. But yeah, we're back on the show. It's Monday. I'm excited to be here with Ryan. We go over all this Reddit stuff, rapid fire questions, a bunch of questions to Paul. You know he's going to handle his training questions very well. So he should be joining up anytime, guys. Just waiting for him to jump in.
Yes, and we have some people already here. JW Buckley, what is going on, man? Seeing you Saturday. Robert Gould in the building. What's happening, man? How is it up north? Palin in the building. Greetings, Palin. So while we're waiting for Paul, what else would we talk about other than fashion, right? You came for arm wrestling, but we're going to talk fashion because the most upvoted post on Reddit for the past week was not about the Dave Chaffey versus Devon Larratt match. It wasn't Engen. It wasn't Coach Ray or Morozov. Fashion designers hate him, posted by Protean. Derek, would you rock this? What do you think?
Man, you know what? When I'm as old as Devon, I probably would. You know, I haven't completely let go. Like all the way, I've let go a lot, but I haven't completely let go. So
yeah,
by the time I'm Devon's old age, probably.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Was it just green because of his High Hookers Club, or is this some kind of subtle message he's trying to send to Chaffey? I was trying to dig deeper because
how this is old, dude. He's had this back in the old High Hooker videos, like years ago. He had the same suit. So I'm pretty sure he just has this hanging in his closet. He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to bring the suit. It's time.
It's time." Okay, he didn't shave his head for Chaffey, but he did bring the green suit, so I guess that's a nod of respect. The next most upvoted post was posted by Equivalent Ask, and it's making peace and breaking bed, King of the Table 7 after party. And yeah, this kind of sums it up. Similar story at East versus West. You pretty much chill out, eat pizza, hang out in the hotel rooms. Who do we have here? We got Chaffey, Devon, Jody, Aussie arm wrestler, Engen, and Coach Ray. Yeah, pretty good stuff. Eating some pizza as you do at these events.
Yeah, and Morozov is obviously too good for everybody. You know what I mean? He can't hang out with the crew.
Look
West, apparently. You know.
Look who's here, Mr. Paul Linn himself. Welcome to the Arm Wrestling Pulse, Paul. How you doing, man? Welcome.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Sorry for the delay.
No, that's all my fault, Paul. I fell asleep, and I was supposed to send you that link and the reminder, and I passed out. It's because you got me training so hard, Paul. So
yeah, that's what it is.
It's all my fault.
Like you're on full vampire schedule. I got you.
My bad, man. Have you watched this, Paul? How we do this show?
I think I caught like a real early one, but I haven't watched a recent one. All right. So you tell me.
Brian, you want to?
Yeah, so Derek and I help run the Arm Wrestling Reddit page. Reddit is basically a giant website that hosts forums in different niches, and of course, there is an arm wrestling one. So this is kind of like an old school message board. If you remember the Northeast boards, it's kind of like that vibe, a little bit different. You can upvote and downvote posts if you like them or hate them. And so we're going to go through some of the most upvoted posts for the last week, kind of give our thoughts on it. And then after that, maybe halfway through the show, a little before that, we're going to take some questions from the arm wrestling subreddit. People are always asking, how do I fix this problem? I'm new. Where do I begin? How do I train my ring finger flexion? Whatever the case is. And so we thought you'd be great for that. Help answer the questions, give back to the community. Not that you need to any more than you do, but it'll make for a good show. So right now we're just going over the most upvoted posts, the most popular ones. And it started with Devon's attire for the weekend. Any thoughts on that, Paul?
I mean, he's going with the Joker thing, right? He's pushing the whole pack of playing cards, and him and John are the Jokers. So why not? Makes sense.
Oh, you think that's what that is?
Absolutely, 100%. That's what it is.
Because he's had that suit for like 10 years. It's in old High Hooker videos. Devon
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's the ploy right now. I mean, you saw the post about the cards and everything, and obviously you got one, Derek.
Right.
So he's the Joker. So why not have the green suit?
That makes
Kind of
sense.
looks like the Riddler, but I felt like it was I felt like it was foreshadowing for that.
Okay.
Huh.
You got one, Paul? I know you're on a card. You're on a card.
No,
right?
no.
You didn't get a card?
Devon doesn't like me.
I got a card and you didn't get a card. What? I got destroyed at every East vs. West and I got a card? That's crazy, man.
You're more influential, Derek.
So for those of you who have no idea what the hell we're talking about, ArmBet just released a playing cards, not like the cards you get from East. These are playing cards, ace through 2. And it's got all the arm wrestler faces on them, and it's themed. So you can see on the left-hand side, all the aces are kind of like the, kind of the kings of the sport. You have where's Derek? Derek is a YouTube 3. You have the terrible 2s with Barry Bourne.
Powerhouse. I'm a powerhouse in the YouTube 3.
Yeah. I didn't make the cut for the YouTube 3s, man. I'm not working hard enough. I need to grind harder.
The Jokers are him and Travis, right? And then John's the ace. Who's the other ace?
The aces are John Brzezinski, Engin Terzi, Neil Pickup, and Levon Saganashvili.
Yeah.
So
Smolikov didn't get an ace. He got a king. Ooh. Shot there.
Who?
Dennis. Sorry, Smolikov.
Yeah. Dennis didn't get on there. Sorry, Dennis. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up, we have Aussie's Head makes a great pin pad. I'm sure you guys saw the tussle at the press conference between Devon Larratt and Dave Chaffey. Was that staged? Do you think they talked about that beforehand, or did things really heat up to that level?
I don't think they talked about it beforehand. They're gonna build it up, have some fun with it, and get a little pushy and shovey and stuff. I think the things they're saying are true, and in some level they believe the stuff, but they're also just making it way excessive just for the show. But I don't think they planned it specifically. Like, we'll start shoving, and we'll get in between Aussie arm wrestler and all that stuff. I don't think so.
Yeah. Paul, agree?
Yeah, I think first off, I don't think Dave is really up for any pageantries or anything scripted at all, for that matter. So he was probably just understanding, hey, this is going to be the energy between Devon and I. Let me just go with the flow.
Yeah. Even in the press conference, Dave did not want to play around. He's like, listen, quote, I'm here to arm wrestle, not entertain. So it's hard to go from that to let's start a fight over Aussie on top of Aussie arm wrestler. So I think you guys are probably right on that one. Next most upvoted post by Y Nefarious. We saw a double Kings move. However, this was staged. I don't know if you guys heard, but Jody was shouting in the background on round 6, hit the double Kings move. And we saw it, but this might be a good opportunity to kind of share your takes on this match in particular. Any surprises there, Paul, for you, or did it go as expected?
I mean, I was hoping Dave was going to find a lane early. The only surprise really was how, in fact, dominant Devon was. Like, I knew he was a favorite. I had, if I'm betting Vegas odds and everything, I had him picked. But rooting for Dave, I was thinking maybe Dave was going to be able to have a better first or second round, and it was going to come down to setup and endurance. And to be honest, that was one of the quickest setups I've seen out of Devon. Yeah. He did not work it or milk it as much as he normally does. So, which to me, that's foreshadowing that we're going to see a really leveled up version of him probably coming into Gennady match.
Fair. Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have after round 1, because I know they did like a whole round 1, and they had to redo it, I think, as a pin. But after that long ass round 1, I was like, oh, that's it. I mean, just in the stops where Devon was getting in the angles and knowing Dave and like what transitions he is willing to make and not willing to make and things like that, I was like, that's it, man. That's the whole thing. Like, I almost want. I don't even remember the Kings move. I think I fell asleep after like round 3. I went back and watched a couple more. And I was just like, man, it's kind of all right. There it is. It's just, it's great to see it. I don't know. I'm torn on it. I was just like, I had higher hopes. I thought Dave would have a little more for him. It sucks that he wasn't able to, and it wasn't as close as I would have hoped. But yeah, I don't even remember the double Kings move. That's how uninterested I got in the match by that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how I feel about the extra 2 rounds at the end of the super matches. I mean, that you can almost can't read anything into it. No one wants to get injured. I'm not a huge fan of it, but yeah, pretty much with Chaffey there. If he didn't win the first round,
Ryan, that's a topic in itself, and I think that's something that we like. the 6-rounders are great, but it changes the game completely. And then when you have a 4-0 and then you have the shutout stake, it gets really weird. It's like you see Angan kind of tweak something, and I think Angan might have been a shutout stake. How is that handled? I know the idea was to make it 6-rounders so that you could bet on different variations, bet on an actual match record. But to me, I'm failing to see how this is super logical for the sport. I mean, best of 7 sounds better to me than a 6-round guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, just the term best of 6 doesn't even really make sense, right? It has to be an odd number. So what staking is doing right now is they put a asterisk in there. It's 4-0 is considered a shutout stake. I think
okay.
After a lot of confusion the first time they did it, because everyone's like, wait, did these rounds count? Do they not count? But I mean, just from a sportsmanship perspective, it's like if the Celtics beat the Lakers, and then the Lakers just had to come out for a 5th quarter and just get dunked on, even though they can't win the match at that point. It just seems like why put them through this? And if you want to see, maybe you want to see 2 top rollers going to hook, that's what the after poll's for. At least that's my take on it. But So moving on here, we have Devon with Vivoda, which wasn't sure if we'd ever see this picture, but here we are. Vivoda's coming back. He signed a contract to pull with John Brzezinski. You guys pumped for that match or what?
Yeah, I am. I mean, especially with John right now. Which John? Where is he? And then Vivoda, where is he? So there's really a lot of big question marks right there, I think, for that match. I saw Vivoda pulling with Coach Ray afterward, did a little after pulling video, and Vivoda was super dominant, just holding Ray, just kind of do whatever he wanted. I know he's a lot bigger than him and things like that, but it kind of at least shows that he's not completely out of it. He's not completely weak. He's on some level. I'm definitely interested to see it. Vivoda had tried to make that return. He tried to make that return. Tim Breslin put a stop to that. I drove 3 hours just for that match to go watch it in person and to get my picture with Vivoda because I felt that Tim Breslin was going to beat him and that he was going to disappear. That's exactly what happened. But I got my picture with Vivoda right then. I had to go get the photo with him. But I'm hopefully he comes back and he looks well, and hopefully John is feeling good and able to apply himself.
Okay. There's a poll up in chat who you guys got between Vivoda and Brzezinski here. Tough. You might as well flip a coin. We don't really have any hard data on Vivoda here, but it is cool to see him back in action. And of course, always a pleasure to watch John Brzezinski. We have a post here from Couch Apple 79 upvotes.
You can ask Paul. Paul, what do you think?
I mean, I think, in my opinion, to come off the couch after Alexi's layoff, I have John favored. Obviously, he's gone through some ups and downs recently, but I got John favored heavily, and I think this could wind up being it's one of those matches that you want to see. It's like that old school UFC super match of 2 legends coming back. Yeah. But I think there's a high probability that we're going to see a lopsided match.
Okay, John, the heavy favorite. What's the poll looking at? Yeah, poll is currently 70-30 in Brzezinski's favor, which, I think that's a reasonable take. Because, on Vivoda's last comeback, he lost to Breslin, of course, and I think that would have been interesting if they got Breslin back. That'd be funny, but not sure if he didn't want to do it or what the situation was. But, all right, next up we have Couch Apple giving some of his thoughts on the event in general, and his key takeaways are that he was unhappy paying $16 for those matches. He thought they were all mismatches, and it's too few matches. Now, I want to preface this by saying King of the Table said they're upping it to 5. So they've heard you loud and clear. There are going to be 5 matches in the future. But what do you guys think about this card without knowing the results? Were you like, these are all mismatches, bad picks, or are you happy with the matchmaking?
I predicted all the matches. I was correct in all the matches. But were they matches that were like pop matches in our community, matches people wanted to see? Yes. Were they mismatches? Yeah. But I understand the reason for hosting them. I understand the reason why some random YouTuber would want to see those names come across each other. I get that. So maybe to sell views, but if you follow the sport or you kind of know what's going on, then you would kind of also know those were mismatches leading into it. But also, I'm an East versus West competitor, love core sports, but I'm obviously East versus West. I know East versus West spoils the crap out of everybody with 15 matches as well, which is excessive. I love it. I hope they don't change it, but I know that's a lot of matches. Most your biggest super match cards are usually like 5 super matches tops anywhere you go, especially not talking about international matches where it costs a lot of money. So I think 5 would be great. I think that's normal. East versus West is just ridiculous. So I think 5 would do well, but I do think those are mismatches, but I understand why they hosted them. So I just hope they would choose closer ones. But if you're not going to be having some unknown world champion who does speak English, a lot of times, then if you're trying to stay more in the pop culture, it's really hard to find like really close matches, I guess. That's my thoughts.
Fair, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't call the card mismatches. Like I was rooting hard for Corey. I get y'all too confused. My 2 boys, but I was rooting hard for Corey, and I did genuinely think if Corey could get a clean hook that we were going to see a really good match. But I think Morozov really is the X factor in that match. He's just getting better. Like I think maybe a year ago it might be a little bit different, but I think Morozov is just improving at such a rate that it's going to be hard for anybody to beat him left arm. But yeah, I think the matches were pseudo predictable. I think like if Vegas had odds, the Vegas odds would have been fairly lopsided. And for the match count, in my opinion, I think 5 is a minimum. I'm more like, we've talked to Angan before, Derek. I mean, obviously Angan is just like feeding the community out of a fire hose. But the reality is, I think a sweet spot is like 7 or 8 matches with a true undercard and a true main card that's kind of separated, and maybe with a potential of one being pay-per-view and one not, and maybe adding to those matches. Could be a long day, could be a big event, but maybe the separation. And let's be real too, like with ourselves as competitors, the East versus West, we know who's selling the pay-per-view. Like Devon's selling the pay-per-view, Levon's selling it, John. We may have a few hundred people that are gonna buy it for us individually, but realistically, whether we're competing for a title or not, we are still pseudo undercard pullers, and that's just being realistic. So I think there could be an opportunity to separate kind of by that undercard and main card, and I think a minimum for core sports has to be 5 matches. And I know they're doing a lot of good stuff in between, and there's a lot of good promotions in between, and the advertising and all the build up. I think that's great. Character development's really, really important. But I think there needs to be at least 5 matches, but I favor 7.
Yeah, I remember there was a poll on this subreddit after East versus West 6, I think it was. Might have been 5, but the consensus was it's actually too much good arm wrestling, which sounds insane to say, especially after the drought we had post-COVID. But yeah, I think people were like, 15's too much. Like, I have to clear 6 hours on my Saturday. People were like, I got kids, I got to bring them to baseball games, and now I'm missing the match I was most hyped for, all this stuff. So
right, but like you and Ryan, you've now been around Angan a good bit, right? I mean, where this guy's coming from, right? Like he is like I've said to Angan several times, like, you don't need to keep increasing my pay when I show up. I am happy to be here for what you paid me the first match. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't need an increase. But he's like, no, Paul, you're not getting it. This is about the pullers. This is about paying the pullers. This is about getting the pullers opportunities. So it's really hard to argue with a guy who's really going to bat for you, even if it may potentially be hurting his business model. But the reality is he's also looking at the fans too and saying, I want to give you all these matches. They are out there. It's not like Angan has a shortage of matches to be made. It's not like he's struggling to fill the card. He's trying to keep it low. So the reality of it is if you're getting a pay-per-view that you're going to own for X amount for as long as you are on Core Sports, I mean, you can tune in whenever you want. For me, I don't like when I come back and rewatch it. Like Derek said, I watch it in segments. So like I'm gonna go tune in for 1 or 2 matches and I come back and watch the other. But yeah, I understand how it would be tough to tune in for an entire day, but that's in your control. When you bought it, you watch it tomorrow. I have a hard time questioning Angan because I know where he's coming from is so pure.
Yeah. I hope he never hits the lottery for like 100 million because these cards will have like 40 matches, man. I was getting breakfast with him at East vs. West 7, and his brain was just like, I want to do this one in this match, and then speaking of the money, he obviously pays people very well. They're very happy, but he's upset that he can't be more. He's like, I wish they deserve so much more. These are our superstars. They deserve And I mean, if you compare it to any other even quasi mainstream sport, yeah, there isn't that much money in arm wrestling, and bless him for trying to fix that. So, all right, moving on here. We saw Devon getting an IV rehydration. I watched the video. He was getting like minerals and like amino acids through this IV drip. You guys ever done this? It was in response to some food poisoning, and Levon did it too before his King of the Table match.
No, I've never had it. Not for being sick. I've had an IV thing. When I got my blood test a long time ago, they came in and gave me like a complimentary vitamin thing that they hooked me up to, but that's it. So
yeah. Paul, is there
never done it, man. I'm the biggest sissy with needles and giving blood. I avoid that at all costs.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. All right. One last thing before we get to some questions. Did you guys see that Jordan is going to be pulling Chaffey? So that is the next match. Any thoughts to share there?
That's a big card. Actually, it's posted on Reddit right now. The whole card is posted on there. But it's the High Five Arm Wrestling Club out in New Jersey. I think is hosting it. Yeah, I mean, suddenly before I might have said like that, that's not close. But Jordan is looking good. I know he's a lot lighter than Dave, but he's still pretty young, looking good. Multiple walk champion. This might potentially be a close match. I know he's going to hook Dave. He's going to go into Dave's power, but Dave's also going to go to Jordan's power. I don't know, man. You want to say Dave destroys him, but it might be close. I think in my brain, I have 60-40 Dave. It might just be too much. But man, if Jordan gets a stop, actual heavy stop in there, it's on. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very in line with that. I feel like it's 60-40, and that's looking at both people's prior matches. I mean, Jordan has been like on fire and looking really, really good. And then the other question is, how big is this guy coming in? I mean, I always saw him as like a 95 guy. We saw him pull Hutchings and lose. Hutchings was pretty dominant. And we know what Chaffey does with Todd. Now, obviously, there's different styles, but we're talking about Todd trying to go in and Jordan trying to go in. Dave's rotation is really, really good. Rotation on top of side pressure, I have to give him the favorite, especially because he's going to most likely, unless something crazy happens, he's going to be 30 pounds bigger.
Do we know how Jordan's left compares to his right? Has he ever said that?
I don't know.
We can kind of do some arm wrestling math here because Jordan just pulled Devon on left, and we know Devon's left versus his right. Then Devon pulled right-handed versus Dave.
Yeah,
I'm trying here. You know what I mean?
You can't do that arm wrestling math.
I know. The data nerd in me just wants to connect some dots that probably aren't there. But that event came out of nowhere. The High Five Club just putting on like a elite level event. So very
impressive. Marcio's pulling Pablo in that one too, I think.
Yeah, that ain't there. There's a bunch of them. There's Svetan Gashevsky versus Craig Touye.
Yep.
Jason Merlot against who's Jason pulling?
Oh, dude. Oh, I just had it. I'll tell you. Crap, I was just looking at it too. Jason's pulling.
It's right here. It's Jason's pulling Nicholas
Nanestad.
Yeah. And what's the other one? Isn't there one more up there?
We got Will Blazeski versus Leroy Walker.
Chance and Sabine.
Chance and Sabin, yeah. Yep. I think that's going to be good. Chance and Sabin.
Just get off his ass and start training, bro. He's not. He's being Chance right now. He's being very chancy right now. I just talked to him. He's being very chancy.
He messaged me about coming up here to practice, but we got to figure out a date. So I mean, he did reach out to me. That was like yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago. So I talked on the phone. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to start training pretty soon." I said, "What? You're going to start training? Chance, get your ass in gear."
Yeah. Well, that's the same. I mean, he's 8 weeks out. He still has a camp. He still has a chance to put a camp.
Right. Those are big matches, man. And Leroy Walker, who's on my team, we're prepping for that match. I've known about this match for a little while. His match. And so Leroy's getting so much better because you're at that level. It's not even a strength thing. It's just learning stuff, learning how to use what you have. So each practice, he's like jumping.
He's really hard to pin right now, there. From last time I grabbed him, even right arm. I mean, he gets to the back of the pad and he's got so much bicep and rotation.
Right.
He's going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. All right, we'll tune into that. It's going to be a pay-per-view event on YouTube. So that is coming up on August 26th.
And that is the same date
Yeah, me and Paul will be out of town, man.
Yeah.
We got to be handling business across the ocean. Actually, Ryan, you might be there too. All three of us might be overseas.
Yeah, the reunion.
Does anyone know if there was a decision to put that? Because I was reached out, but the High Five guys are in New Jersey. They're fairly close to me. They're all great dudes, great group. This whole promotion kind of came out of nowhere, and I was approached for a match, but I was like in limbo for what I was doing with East versus West. So I put it on hold, and then when I talked to Angan, I took the match, but I didn't realize, I didn't put 2 and 2 together that it was going to be on the same weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that was intentional, or I don't know. Angan didn't seem to be.
They hit me up for a match as well. I feel like this event might have been set before East versus West was set. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it might have been. I think it might have been. I think you're right.
We just got a super chat from Tip Altier. Thank you, Tip. He writes, in my opinion, this is the best arm wrestling has ever been. Hard to disagree with that. Great to see you three guys. Can we get opinions on the John versus Todd match? So you two have both pulled John. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts? That's coming up.
I pulled John a long time. My match with John doesn't even count. All right?
True.
Paul got beat by the old man more recently. All right, so you can blame him. I got beat by the old man a long time ago. Okay. No, I don't know. I feel like Todd's more. I don't want to say more active, but he hasn't ever stopped. He's just stayed the course. And John, I think, is kind of wavering right now a little bit. But traditionally you always say John. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I go back to my tried and true. I never bet against the GOAT on my channel. I've never ever predicted the GOAT to lose. I will always say John Breslin wins by default. And because more often than not, he's going to prove me right. So I'll say John, but I really don't know 100%.
Paul?
So this is like one of my most anticipated matches. Now, this has been out and announced for a good amount of time. And, I get to pull with Todd occasionally, and, I get to, rub elbows with John, and I pulled him. And, when you look back into history and some of the wars that they've had and, being ex-training partners and stuff, I feel like technically, obviously, it favors John because he's a little bit more of a technical arm wrestler. And with pronation through the roof, I really think this match is going to come down to John's cup. Where is John's cup at? Where is his ability to defeat Todd's pronation? So Todd, everybody's going in a hook. You have to turn and pull him up to have any chance at all when he's engaged. So we know John's pronation is at such a mega level. But there's times where we see, his containment maybe falter a little bit or his wrist go back a little bit. So the question is, how deep can John cup Todd? To me, that's going to decide the match. But I have a feeling that Todd is going to come in at a really, really good level. And then, we got to question, where's John at? And how much is he, putting into this? But I'm sure it means the world to Todd.
Yeah, they both pulled Corey West somewhat recently. Todd definitely had an easier time, right? But, top rolling Todd is probably easier than top rolling Corey West. So we might see John exercise more of an outside option there.
Right. That was a gap between those matches, too. And Corey definitely got better. We also, and Corey did get a pin on Todd, I believe, and he did make it work.
Yeah.
Where John was, man, that was great to see in person. That was a real.
That was nuts. That was such a grinder. Yeah.
Corey was so much better at that point, I believe.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think there's probably a 2-year gap or so, give or take. But yeah, I thought John was gonna pop. Man, he was turning so red in that final round. That was wild. Love to see it. So let's move on to some questions from the community. Dolphy asks, "What's the number one mistake you see beginners make?" So. Before we get on to this first tip, thank you for that, man. Appreciate the super chat. It supports the show. Hope we did a good job answering that question for you. Okay, so yeah, number one arm wrestler you see, number one mistake beginners make. New guy shows up at your club. He's going to do some stupid SH. What is the number one stupid SH you see him do?
Have any sense of pride going into this sport.
Good answer.
I mean, and that can manifest itself, whether it's, breaking your arm, whether it's trying to join an event or enter pro class too early, whether it's not listening to your coaches in terms of moves, whether it's like just all those things I think can be from a sense of pride, getting into this thinking you should be the man or are the man. So I guess if I had to make one rule or one thing, I'd say they have a little bit too much pride.
Paul, how about you?
Man, I think it's a combination of stuff. I can't really pinpoint one. I think it can be polar opposites. I can't stand when a new guy gets in and wants to train for a year before he competes. That drives me nuts. I'm like, what are we doing here? We're in the United States. We got about 4 different classifications of arm wrestlers. We got novice, amateur, semi-pro, all kinds of stuff for you guys. Get out there and pull. And then there's the flip side where you got the guy who comes out and has a higher self-interpretation of his level as well, which that can be frustrating. So to me, those 2 things are big. And the other thing is that faux pas topic where you got a new arm wrestler coming in and he's asking everybody and their brother about juice. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Learn to arm wrestle. There's so many steps to this stuff. So those to me are pain points. And the third one is like a trigger for me.
Yeah, so similar answer here. I would say from a training perspective, I would say worrying about pinning, right? You'll be working with someone new, you'll be starting to show them the ropes, and they just want to pin it, right? You'll talk about getting, your cup, and then the second they do that, they start trying to pin you, in a layman's thought of how you arm wrestle, and it's very hard for them to really learn techniques, learn to use the elbow pad real estate, because they're always just trying to pin. You tell them one thing, they're like, all right, yeah, sure, and then they start going to the side, and it's like, whoa, back it up. There's so many steps we have to get to first. So don't be anxious to pin, leave your ego at the door, and don't overestimate or underestimate your ability. I think that sums up our 3 answers pretty well. Next question is, anybody else doing wrist curls like I do, asks Horia. He writes, I train my forearm flexors with dumbbells only. And I initially tried doing them just like Levon. So like, forearm on the knee, arm flat, and doing wrist curls like we see Levon doing. Except I used 19 kilograms instead of 100 kilograms. Thanks for that. But soon enough, my right wrist started hurting badly for a month or 2. So I stopped doing them. Ever since my wrist healed, I've been doing wrist curls by standing up with my arms by my side, like a farmer walk position, and just curl the dumbbells up with my wrists only. I've had no pain ever since I started using this variation, and my forearms get more sore than they did previously. Any negatives to this? Do you guys do them that way? Is this good, bad? What do you think?
Personally, for wrist curls, I don't do them that way. I train my wrist curls are cupping day. I do grip fingers, so barbell like over a bench, just fingers, purely wrist flexion, finger flexion with a dab of wrist flexion at the end. Because in that angle, you can't really go very deep. The wrist flexion goes about that far, like it's not very significant, right? So that's mostly with fingers. Then I go over to cupping. I do high cupping with index finger up, all like high hooky, everything driving up with pronation, and then I do low chopping cupping. So I change my cupping. That's all in the fingers as well because it's a fat cone handle. Then the last thing I do is a small diameter handle completely in the palm where it stays in the palm and all the pressure's in the palm, and it's heavy cupping with like heavy partials completely in the palm so the fingers aren't in play at all. So I do those 4 things for cupping a few times a week. So I've seen good gains with mine. I like where my hand and wrists are at. It tends to do pretty well compared to my peers, at least in North America. Yeah, I mean that stuff. That man, watching Levon tear his wrist like that and things like that, I don't know, man. I'm good with what I got. I haven't, but I can also say I haven't ventured out too much. I found those things a long time ago. I like them. I like the way they feel. My hand and wrist would do well, so I was like, cool, I'm staying with this, and that's kind of what I've been doing personally.
Okay, Paul, how about you? You do these flat?
So to the question, or what he's asking about how his variation now, doing them standing at the sides. You're going to get more forearm tendon flexor activity because you have the ability to roll it down into your fingers. Where you're not really getting that unless you're going into the negative aspect of your wrist being fully extended when you're doing it off of a bench or off of your knees. So you're getting more finger flexors in there along with your wrist curl against gravity. Me personally, I don't do it like that. I mean, I used to train forearms just for general strength back in the day, and that was how I did it. Never over a bench, standing and curling, or behind my back, curling my wrists. But now the only time I ever do wrist flexion with a barbell or a dumbbell is either if I am really focused on straight wrist flexion for a match and I want to get it to a mega point where I can get it super deep and be, at the highest level it's been at. But again, like Derek's saying, I mean, you're running a little bit of risk there. And when I do it, I'll do it off of a bench, and usually with dumbbells. But as Derek said, for me, the thin diameter wrist wrench is the bench press of cupping, meaning that is the core lift to me. That's going to add just enough finger flexion in there. Your finger flexors will be activated, but you're going to have primary focus on your wrist. You can also work internal rotation with it. To me, that's the one-stop shopping, especially if you have an offset eye hook at the top where you can aim at your top finger or your bottom finger. And then it's followed up by Devon's multi-spinner. Again, if you're going to go out and get one of those 17-inch big ones, I don't think there's a whole lot of value in that. I got Lucas Raymond to size mine down, so it makes sense for my hand size. But to me, those two tools are like the flat bench and the incline of cupping.
Fair enough. Yeah, good answer. I don't think it's so much that the way Levon does it is dangerous in particular. I just think he was doing 100 kilograms. And if you're getting hurt doing it, I would say lower the weight, give your connective tissue more time to heal. I don't think it's inherent to that exercise. We have another question by Mr. Beisenberg. He says the title of the post is Arm Wrestling Newbie. He writes, "Hello guys, hope everyone is doing well. I'm a newbie in the whole arm wrestling thing, and I'd like to know where I stand when it comes to grip strength and whatnot. I don't have any special equipment. Can anyone suggest a way to test myself? Appreciate any kind of suggestions." So I thought this might be a good time to talk about grip. When you hear grip strength, do you guys immediately think like crushing strength? We kind of got to parse this terminology out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what he means, right? Isn't that what he means? Crushing strength? Like how much can he close a gripper like that?
Yeah, I would assume so. That would be my assumption. Yeah, but maybe he doesn't know that that's not super applicable to arm wrestling.
Yeah, wrong Reddit, man. You're posting in the wrong place. If you have a grip question, you go to the grip subreddit, man. What are you doing over here in this arm wrestling Reddit? That's about grip. Man.
Yeah, Paul, do you agree grippers no bueno for arm wrestling, or can you finagle them a little bit and make it work?
I mean, I think anytime you have strong fingers, it's an asset, right? The problem is when you're squeezing a gripper all the time, and if you look at any of that grip stuff, the only reason I know anything about it is because I'm friends with Jed Johnson and Lucas Raymond and those guys, and it's just in my face all the time. So I follow it and I watch it. I personally suck at it. I mean, I guess my grip is better than the average person, but I don't train it. And the fundamentals behind a lot of what they're doing, if you're squeezing a gripper, your strongest grip point is going to be with your wrist back. I don't want my wrist to be strong there. And I remember, John and Tim Breslin and some other guys, they told me if you're going to train grippers, train them things with a small one. I have a little tug grip I got from Iron Man where I train like my bottom three, and it's real loose. It's not a tug, but it's more for reps. Or you can use one of these little stress balls. I keep it on my desk and I use it all the time. To me, that's more valuable. Even if you're doing the pinch grip, and I mean, they have 100 different things that they do in grip. A majority of them, other than fat handle things or rolling thunder things, even with the fat handles and rolling thunder, a lot of time you wind up when you're max effort with your wrist back. So that finger flexion has to be of value, but I feel like the mind muscle thing, you might be subconsciously training yourself to let your wrist go back.
Yeah. To this gentleman, what I might suggest is you might see people talking about finger strength and immediately think crushing strength, which would be like that. Mostly they're referring to flat finger flexion, right? See how my fingers are flat and going down? That's typically what people are talking about when they're talking about finger strength, which is not the motion of crushing a Captain of the Crush gripper. Kind of related, which arm wrestling handle to buy? Hey guys, I'm new to arm wrestling. I made an arm wrestling table and got a pulley system from Ezreal Arm Wrestling Club. Now I'm only missing a handle to practice my movements. What are the best handles available to practice overall arm wrestling strength? Thanks for the help. Get a arm wrestling belt or karate belt, judo belt, whatever you want to call it. I think that's perhaps the most versatile tool to get. But outside of that, what are your guys' go-to for a new arm wrestler?
Everybody is going to say, I think what Paul's going to say, which is going to be a wrist wrench. That's the most common arm wrestling, tool. I like cone handles. I'm a big cone handle fan. I like that it helps isolate the movements of chopping and sinking or rising and pronating. I'm a big cone handle fan. I have a wrist wrench. It has dust on it. I'm not going to lie to you. I just today every day my daily things are the martial arts belt and the cone handle. Those are my kind of go-tos. I do have like a Juji fat rolling handle I'll throw out sometimes, or a country crush, but most of the time 90% of it's gonna be the cone handle and the martial arts belt. The only thing about the wrist wrench, I never liked how hard I had to squeeze it, which is kind of Devon's gripe with it, how hard you have to use your fingers to try to hold on, rather than, so I feel like it's a lot of finger work for me when I'm working with it. I do my fingers separate than I do my wrist. And so, I don't know, for me, it just, I like cone handle. I'm going to say cone handle, but teach his own.
Yeah. I love it.
Paul?
I love the cone handle, Derek. I'm right with you. I use it a ton. I got the country crush with the cones for my tight pulls. I use it basically for everything. And the goal was doing that was to get, like, if I'm doing a seated row, when I first started using that, I can't use nearly the weight. My goal is to get to the point where my hands can contain what I can pull with my lats. I'm not there yet, but the progress has happened. That said, you're right about the wrist wrench, the thin diameter wrist wrench. I'm going to call that the bench press. I'm going to give you three core tools, and I'm going to give you options to buy them or make them, and then I'm going to give you a dark horse. So number one, thin diameter wrist wrench. I'm going to plug Arm Assassin Strength Shot because he can make you anything to your specs. That said, I got my favorite wrist wrench from Andre Shark. And it's not his latest iteration. It was his first iteration. It was a metal handle with knurling and offset eye hook. It was awesome. And it was the perfect diameter. I think it was, I forget what it is, under 2-inch diameter. So I love that one. And if I already told you the multi-spinner, I get the multi-spinner from Lucas Raymond because he makes a smaller size. I'm going to call that the power clean of the core lifts for arm wrestling. And then you're going to have the karate belt. You can make the wrist wrench yourself with PVC. Very simple. You can make that. You can make the multi-spinner if you look it up. And obviously the karate belt or any form of belt for pronation, supination, rise and sink, you have everything that you need right there. I have pretty much every tool known to man. My gym, if you go into my gym, is cluttered with tools underneath my cables that don't get used as much. Now, I do select through them and use them depending on the opponent and working on specific strengths. But when it comes to what I do on an everyday basis, if I'm not preparing for anything specific, those three things are it. So, however you split it up from wrist flexion to cupping, rising and sinking, I split that way. And pronation, supination, I split off on another day. Those are the three tools. The next one is the dark horse. I've been preaching about this forever. Some people listen, most people don't. But Lucas Raymond makes a handle that we kind of came up with together. It was based off of a handle that showed up in one of Devon's videos before I got started arm wrestling that I found. And we wound up calling it the hook finisher. It was a simple handle, like a cylindrical handle that comes off with an L and a little eye hook in it. Mm-hmm. And
you can keep going, Paul. You're on solo layout, just so people can see.
Anyway, so it's like an L-shaped handle that you hold here, and that L comes out, and you can attach your cable, usually at this direction, for downward rotation in a hook. We tweaked it a little bit, and Lucas actually used the foot to a couch, a cylindrical foot to a couch. He attached it on there, and now we have the conic hook finisher. So to Derek's point, you are going to get the most amount of pressure in a hook coming through your pinky, and what you're going to be using to drive down is through your pinky. That cone-shaped handle with rotation, if you get the right angle in your cable setup, is, to me, completely irreplaceable. And it's such an important tool. And whether you hook or top roll, but if you hook and you're not training that, that's good for the defensive side and stopping pins, and it's good for the finishing power. To me, that's something everybody who pulls in a hook should have.
There you go. Heck of an answer. You're welcome, Chance Month 8801. All right, let's move on to our next question here. We have a question about side pressure. I'm new to arm wrestling and would like to know.
Right. Let me interrupt for a second before you start this one. Flip side, guys, real fast, I just want to say, you don't need anything besides a martial arts belt. You can make everything happen with just normal gym equipment. If you don't have money, get something. You can even use a towel. It doesn't have to be a martial arts belt. But anything can be done with standard gym equipment or something that conforms to your hand, like a towel or a martial arts belt. Other stuff just helps isolate. That's all it does. It just isolates more. It's great to have. You don't have to have it. So don't think if you don't have these things, you cannot train. That is false. They're just nice to have sometimes. Remember that.
Yep, I second that completely.
Yeah, I train at Ron Klemba's club, and he has a very nice round stick that he found in the woods, and he attaches a carabiner to it. That's not a joke. So and he's a hell of an arm wrestler. So if he can make it work with a stick, you're going to be all right. All right, so moving on here, we have a question from Tuna Mantim. He writes, side pressure. I'm new to arm wrestling and would like to know, are you guys actively activating both pecs and lats simultaneously, as well as cupping when you go sideways? I just find I always forget to stay tight at the table and get pushed off center table all the time, but can come back most of the time. Any help would be appreciated. Cheers. So this guy keeps getting opened up. He can't stay tight for his side pressure, and he's having trouble really feeling his pecs and lat activate during his side pressure. Any advice to help this poor man out?
Paul, you go ahead first.
Okay, so so I believe that arm wrestling as a whole is going to, arm wrestling as a sport is a chain of muscle groups, starts from the fingertip, works all the way back. Usually everything from the fingertip is most important, because if you can't get what you need there, all those big muscle groups don't matter. So yes, in theory, when activating side pressure, you should be activating both pectoral muscles and both lats. And you're not activating the lats as much because you're not pulling, but there will be activation when you are internally rotating your shoulders, because that's basically what it is. You're off the peg and you're off your hand and you are coming in. It's a pec deck. You should be activating as much of your upper body as you possibly can in an efficient fashion. If you're getting pulled off center, from center, on the go, my suggestion would be to work on your setup. If you're losing 10-2, it's probably because of where you're positioning your shoulders on the go and how you are preloading and activating. So, we dug into some stuff on the little arm wrestling science segment we did with the 98%, which is really interesting. There's more to come to that. But the idea of fast twitch versus slow twitch and speed versus timing, what you can train effectively, you can vastly affect your slow twitch dominance more than you can your fast twitch. So if you're not the fastest person, in my opinion, you have to combat that with load before the go and how you're setting up. You can, in fact, protect your 10-2 based on how you set your shoulders and how you set your elbow. So I would dig into that to protect from 10-2. And then I would also start working on, in practice, actual loads with ready goes, what you can get away with, what you can set, and activating those muscle groups that you think you might not be activating while you're in practice.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. Also, Tuna Man, you are new, right? You're new. It's gonna take a while for your tendons, ligaments to get tight. That Golgi tendon is gonna be telling you to stop. So with side pressure, I mean, it's a pretty compound movement. There's gonna be a lot of things involved on the table when you go what you would consider side pressure. So don't be too hard on yourself if you're new. It might just take some time, right? Your body just is probably completely not used to going in that direction. So of course you're not going to be tight. No one's just stepping up to the arm wrestling table for the first time and just staying super tight and locked in. You physically can't do it. This sport takes time. Don't get ahead of your skis there and be watching Todd Hutchings and be like, why can't I do that? It's because you physically can't. It may not be something wrong with your form, although I'm sure there's plenty wrong with your form. You're new. But just keep that in mind. These things take time, which brings us to our next question related. When to start training side pressure? Another new arm wrestler wants to practice side pressure with minimal risk of harsh injury. Do my bones need to get tougher before I start doing that? Derek, when do you have your new guys start training side pressure, if at all, if that's something you even specifically train?
I mean, I tell my new guys, I give the same speech, the safety speech, and then we get into the ABCs of arm wrestling. Yeah, we want people pulling backwards, but either way, inevitably at the end, you're going to go sideways somewhat at the end of any motion to pin somebody. We just want them going backwards. And I tell my guys, you're going to find your style. It's going to happen. I'm going to tell you this perfect, safety walkthrough, and then in 5 practices, it's going to look way different what you're doing, right? And I was like, but these are the basics. Eventually, you might be a shoulder roller, you might be a top roller, you might be whatever you're going to be. But we'll slowly get into this more sideways options as time goes on. If your practice and your team are making you go purely backwards and never sideways for an extended period of time, it's a little bit weird because you're definitely going to have to add that in at some point. My guys, I'm not going to lie, most of my guys don't go to the gym. Most of my guys are just practicing once a week and they're kicking it with the boys, right? So if and when someone actually is asking me for programming, regardless of how new they are, I'd have them start training the muscles for side pressure, of course. But would I have them actively using like a band against a wall and slamming sideways? Probably not right away. We might get into that. You know, it's all about building a foundation, especially if you're new. Sideways is going to hurt your elbows the most because oftentimes when your forearm is going to be vertical, depending on your build, there's some guys who sideways doesn't really hurt. Big guys like Leroy Walker, Eric Spoto, guys who can't get their forearms vertical are always slanted. The shoulder injuries is what they have from side pressure, not their inner elbow. Inner elbow pain comes from when your forearm is vertical, and that's when it starts tweaking on your inner elbow. So, but driving sideways is a mixture. You know, side pressure is, for me, a mixture of internal rotation and adduction of the elbow. So those two things combined, and then there's a lot of limiting factors like your elbow or your wrist, things to actually get the power. Like it's like having a strong engine, but with ball tires. These are the tires, man. You have to have strong tires to get the power to the road, right, to make things actually move. So I would say train the muscles for it, but nothing's really going to happen until your hand and wrist and your elbow are at a certain level to be able to use that side pressure and convey it on the table. And that comes through table time. So I don't think at any point you're like, I need to have all side pressure training from now on. You just start slamming into shit and everything's just sideways. I don't think that ever happens. I think it goes gradually, especially as long as you're training the muscles at the table or in the gym, hopefully both.
Sweet. Well, that's side pressure, but what about back pressure? Asks Apprehensive Sugar. He wants to know, what are the best back pressure exercises? Heard some people talking about cheat curls is great for back pressure. Now, before we answer this, we get into this problem every single show. What is back pressure? Is it any kind of pressure going backwards? Is it specifically the muscles of your back applying pressure? So like your lats? What is back pressure? For these purposes, let's assume it's anything pulling backwards, right? Any move. So Derek, I think you may be technically correct, Derek, but I think the consensus is it's any, just like side pressure is anything going to the side, back pressure is anything coming backwards towards
it's
you.
Really
let's dig into that. Let's dig into that because
so I have a problem. This Ryan saying this because of me. Because every time we do the show, people consider this back pressure. I consider this posting pressure, whether it's risen or sub. Because I think you can post low hand. I think this is posting, and for me, this is back pressure. When you're using your lats and you're driving your elbow back, keeping this angle, that's back pressure for me, right?
Well, so there's variations to all of this. Derek, what is what I would argue is.
Oh wait, I think Paul's getting a phone call. Hold on, we can't hear you right now.
Yeah,
am I still here?
You're kind of back, Paul. Can you say something?
Sorry, I had a phone call coming in.
Okay, we can barely hear you for some reason.
Yeah, your mic, you can barely hear you. I'm gonna no, hold on.
Wait, I think it might be good.
Paul, how's it going over there? Can you say something?
Does this work now?
Yeah, you're back.
All right. The only problem is I can't really hear you guys now. So, anyway, so what Derek just said, I see as drag. Anything where your elbow comes close to you. But the point that Derek made that I agree with is the angle of the degree of flexion in your elbow. So you have drag, you have up where you pivot, you like plant your elbow and pivot. To me, that's up pressure. But all of these things, and you know, you have straight drag, and you also have supinated. You have supinated pulling towards yourself. So is that back pressure? If we supinate too, to me, back pressure is your ability to keep a hammer curl position with your pronator intact and this angle of your arm not moving regardless of what you do. So if you go up and your arm doesn't open, if you drag back and your arm doesn't open, to me, that's how I look at back pressure as a whole. So when you start talking about cheat curls for back pressure, and you're talking about supination, to me, when you're curling, that's almost always with some form of internal rotation. So I don't really call it back pressure as a whole. So I think it gets really hairy, but like back pressure training is really simple when you look at like core lifts and gym lifts. I mean, if you're not doing pull-ups, seated rows, dumbbell rows, and things like that, I mean, these are the things that are going to add to that tightness. And then if you're not doing hammer curls or static holds of some form, but I mean, ideally, we don't want to set up like this to arm wrestle and then pull a guy here. We want to set here and pull him here without opening up. So that's where the whole full reps versus half reps and statics versus full range of motion come into play. But I mean, to me, back pressure is one of the most logical things to train in comparison to side pressure, because that's where it gets real tricky and real hairy. You should be able to train your back pressure a million different ways without any special tools other than a towel or a karate belt and regular gym equipment. Side pressure, you're delving into some weird joint areas and pain points and potential injuries.
Yeah. So Mike's Viking Fitness chiming in saying Derek's face when someone says posted back pressure.
Paul disagreed with me. The way he described it is the exact same thing I said. It's about keeping this angle. And that's everything. So even if you're static and someone just can't open up the angle, it's your back pressure stopping them. So we agree. So I always say you slide your elbow back, but keeping this angle is back.
Yes.
So
yes, I agree with it. I agree with it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like, I understand the post move. But yeah, it's keeping the angle.
Okay. So if we can put this into a formula, back pressure equals drag plus post. Can we all agree?
But that could be dragging while you're.
Oh God!
I think just dragging your elbow back while keeping the angle. That's it.
Okay, you know what?
To me, it's the ability to keep the angle.
Yeah,
establish and keep it.
Well, first of all, Mr. Apprehensive Sugar, you're banned from the subreddit for this. Look what you've done. To answer your question more specifically, I actually I want to amend my answer from last week for the best arm wrestling exercise you can do, and I think it also answers this question. Klemba does this. So he will do a neutral grip pull-up. He comes up to the top, and then he goes out while fully flexed. So he does a chin-up, pull-up, and then he goes out and in, and he's hammer curling while keeping himself pulled up. So he kind of hits everything we're talking about here. He's doing the posting while also holding a pull-up position, which is going to be training his drag. So in summation, that's my answer to your question. What are the best back pressure exercises?
Oh, I would say neutral grip pull-ups as well. I was going to say that. We just kind of got into an argument about the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say neutral grip pull-ups. If I had to pick one workout for back pressure, neutral grip pull-ups, only not just because the angle is perfect, but because the muscle synergy or muscle coordination of getting multiple muscles to work well together is, I think, amazingly done in pull-ups. So I would say partial neutral grip pull-ups would be my favorite, probably, for back pressure exercises, personally.
There you go. What do you think about adding that elbow flex?
I'm a 350 pounds man. I'm not. I'm not hanging out there and being like, yeah, you guys like that while maintaining. It's not that. So yeah, maybe for light guys, that might be great. I've never done that, so I don't know how that would feel.
Paul, I would like to see you try that next time you're at the gym. So I think we lost you, but Ron Klemba does this pull-up variation. He'll do a neutral grip pull-up, and then at the top he goes out and in. So he's doing a hammer curl with his own body weight while completely pulled up.
Stuff, dude. That's some gymnast stuff.
I've done them. I can't get like a full range of motion on it, but I've done them. I don't know. I mean, you definitely are getting all kinds of different activation, but it's kind of painful.
Yeah. No doubt about it. All right, we are getting close to the end here. See if we can get maybe one more in here.
You're kind of blocking Paul. You want to take away the super chat thing off the screen?
What I do? Oh,
there you go. I was like, I'm blocking this camera.
Yeah, we just had a meme of Derek up there for a minute. Okay, so final question, a little bit of psychology. I won't read the whole thing for time's sake, but basically this gentleman is recovering from Usnia. He's recovering from a mid-distal humerus spiral fracture. Sorry to hear that, my man. And he says he's nervous getting back on the table. You know what? I'll read it. Currently recovering from a mid-distal humerus spiral fracture I got a couple months ago, as well as severe radial nerve damage caused by the open reduction surgery to fix said break. He says, you can see some nasty pics in my profile. He says, the break was caused due to a preliminary undiagnosed bone injury. My surgeon speculated since it was normally comfortable amount of side pressure for me to use, coupled with pain I was experiencing prior to the injury. Okay, so he broke it doing side pressure arm wrestling. One of the biggest things I'm struggling with is anxiety surrounding getting back to the table, despite my other arm, my left, being my primary and stronger arm. The trauma definitely sticks with you hard, and even watching some arm wrestling videos can cause anxiety flashbacks of my break. Does anybody have any tips for overcoming sports-related injury trauma like this? I'd love to hear what anyone with experience like this has to share on how they overcame it. So this guy broke his arm. He's, naturally going to be hesitant getting back on the table. Even just watching arm wrestling can bring back some bad memories. Do you guys have any experience or tips for someone dealing with something like this?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, that's a tricky one for me because even my time in football, I was blessed that like the only bones I broke were like noses, fingers, ribs, and toes.
Yeah.
Like no major ACL surgeries, no broken bones. I've never broken a bone, knock on wood. So I don't know what an arm break, if I broke my arm on the table, I don't know what that would do to me. I'm positive that I would have some of the same anxieties that this gentleman is.
Yeah. I mean, most people don't come back from it.
Yeah, most don't. One of my good friends when I started, we were friends outside of arm wrestling. We both got started 3 months in, and he broke his arm, and he has not put his elbow on the table ever again. And you know, it's the like you pair up the injury, and then a lot of people don't talk about the nerve issues that come along with it too. If they got to move your tricep or bicep out of the way where they're coming in, you have ulnar or medial nerve like recovery that takes months, where you lose part of your hand, your use of it. You know, that stuff's traumatic. I don't know how I personally would deal with it. I like to deal with it. I like to say that I'd be able to, you know, put it to the side and be strong enough mentally. But it's hard for me to give advice on something that I haven't gone through.
Yeah, same. I mean, it would be pure speculation. You know, one of my guys breaks his arm. I'm going to be telling him, you know, like as much positive things as I can. I'm going to be telling him, you know, this is the sport we're in. You know, this is the risk we all run, especially, and we should all know it. That's why, you know, whenever I am someone in a pro bracket, in pro class, I expect you to know how to protect yourself at all times. And I'm not taking it easy. This is the danger we should all understand getting into the sport. And if you guys don't have proper coaches or anybody that's letting you know about that, anybody watching this, then that's an issue. If they're not talking to you about safety, the very first thing in your very first practice, that's an issue. But I mean, like I said, I haven't broken my arm, so I mean, it would just be like, you know, that sucks, man. You know, understand that is the risk. Hopefully you understood that before you got into it. Hopefully this wasn't a surprise to you in terms of like, I can't believe this happened. This is insane. But you did say you had a pre-existing injury. So, I mean, I would kind of focus on that. I mean, like it probably wouldn't have happened if you not had a pre-existing injury, right? So, right, you were good. You just had a pre-existing injury, right? So you were all right, man. So, I mean, the other arm probably won't break because there's no pre-existing injury. So I would say positive on that note. You know, but keep everything tucked in, pull backwards, keep your face connected to your hand, all the safety stuff. But yeah, man, that sucks. And it's definitely going to be a mental hurdle for sure to get back into this. But best of luck. If you're watching this, man, message me on Instagram. We can chat.
Yeah, one of the things to look at when in comparing to arm wrestling to the rest of these other sports out there, like we get injured and it's a very painful sport, and I didn't realize until I got into it how much pain was involved. You know, so if you get through that beginner pain, you've gotten through the worst of it. And then when you look at like the injuries themselves, if an arm break or a torn bicep, you know, or a pec tear or something, these are the pinnacles of the injuries that we face. We're blessed, man, because other sports, like if you're in a fight game or you're playing football or any contact sport at all, you could have a life-threatening injury, anything you're doing. Focus on the fact that, you know, you're still alive, and then getting back on the table, you're not risking your life. I think that's one way to look at it. You know, coming back and how many arm wrestlers have broke their arm and become very, very great arm wrestlers. I think John had broke his arm early on, didn't he? Dave Chaffey, Paul Talbot. There's quite a few.
Yeah. Is it okay? Quick question while you're on this topic before I forget, Paul. This is my first time I ever heard your name. WAL Amateur Championships. You won that one, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. And that was like your first year. You were early into the sport, right?
Yeah, it was like 6 months in.
Yeah. Is that true? There was like 7 arm breaks at that tournament?
That was the year before.
Oh, that was the year before. Okay.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, there was.
7 at one tournament?
Yeah, it was a shit show. I was not there, but I remember looking it all up. That year, Lucas Raymond won.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he gave me I don't know if it was 7, but I know that it was like a lot. But it was a huge tournament, huge. A lot of people in that amateur class that did not know how to arm wrestle and was not conditioned.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's great.
Yeah. I would just add, it hasn't happened to me in arm wrestling, but did break my wrist snowboarding when I was younger. And we have a guy at the club who recently broke his arm. And I can speak to what he's been doing. You probably haven't been arm wrestling at all. It sounds like you just took a break, understandably. Right now, in the arm wrestling compartment of your brain, all you're thinking about is that break. It's eating up all the oxygen in the room, and of course it is. So what I would say is, if you're still interested in this sport and want to get back in it, show up to a practice and just hang out. Don't even arm wrestle. Just go treat it like a social event. Have a good time, laugh, talk about arm wrestling a little bit, and then leave. Don't even feel like you have to get on the table. Next time, maybe you'll get a little bit of pulling in just on your left. And slowly but surely, the amount of space taken up by that break is going to shrink, and the amount of space taken up by, hey, arm wrestling is actually fun, is going to grow. And then eventually, maybe you just grip up with someone on the right hand and you just say, hey, let's stay center of the table. No left or right. Let me just work my rise or whatever back pressure. And then slowly but surely, that trauma will shrink and you'll be reminded of why you fell in love with arm wrestling in the first place. So that'd be my advice, man. Don't feel like you have to pull. Just show up and have fun. And that's it. So
that's it. You nailed it. That's
right on. So we are overtime here. Paul, thank you so freaking much. This delivered, man. Loved having you here. You are the right pick for the coach for Team West, man. Can't wait. I'll be seeing you over there, actually. So
yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, anything you want to shout out, man? Plug while you're on here.
I'm going to shout you out for the job that you're doing.
Oh, come on, man.
No, I'm dead. No cap. Like, you killed it, man. You worked like nonstop. I don't think people understand what goes into that event behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And how much you're working, editing, how quickly you release stuff. Like, you're killing it, dude. You deserve credit for that, for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll tell you what, dude. Arm wrestling has given me so much. Like, I was 28 years old. I was looking at, just men's 30+ basketball leagues for life. My lifts, my gym sessions were becoming less and less inspired. I find arm wrestling, dude, and it's just like, a single day has not passed where haven't thought about something arm wrestling related. And I thought, this is my chance to just give back and be a little less in debt to the sport of arm wrestling. And so it's nice to hear that people enjoyed it. But really, man, I mean, Lethal Arms, what do you got going on? Tell us something.
Coming
up.
Yeah, we just had our Keystone State Championship that turned out really well and everything. We got a couple new lines of shirts coming out. The website, I took the website down because of lack of traffic, but we do still sell the shirts. You can DM me, I can ship you stuff. We got an American arm wrestler line, trying to promote the idea of the West as a whole. So we got a bunch of different stuff coming out with that. Some signature shirts for different pullers and things of that nature. So if you want an ugly orc shirt, I do have a bunch of them. So yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to plug, just the stuff that we're doing, and some other news too that might be pertinent to the community. We are going to do another East versus West qualifier series. So stay tuned for the details on that. We're still working that out. I got some discussion to do with James Reed, Travis and Engen. But we're gonna put the question marks that were around that first iteration. They'll all be cleaned up, and we're gonna come out with, hopefully, rather than having 8, spreading them out a little bit more and having 12.
Sweet.
Better things. So obviously we're gonna improve as we go, but stay tuned for more information on that as it comes out.
That is huge, man. Love to hear that. And Derek, theawswitch.com. Gotta say, if you want to check out some of Derek's gear, you can go theawswitch.com. Got all kinds of stuff now. Help support Derek. He does unbelievable things for this community. He's getting Brian Shaw, and he got Larry Wheels in. He's representing the West over in Turkey. So support the man. Of course, next week is going to be on Derek's YouTube channel as well, AW Derek. Mondays, 6 p.m. real time, 3 p.m. fake Pacific time. Check it out there. Derek, any closing thoughts?
No, man. Bridget is working tirelessly. She actually has shown me like 4 new designs in the last 3 days for shirts and things like that. Maybe some female shirts coming out tailored for lady arm wrestlers on top of some new stuff. So some exciting stuff coming out for the website. Really excited about that. But yeah, like you said, awesome having Paul on here. I knew Paul would deliver in terms, especially all the training questions and stuff. Love hearing this dude talk about all that. I mean, we've been having some great guests with Chris Drummond on here recently and stuff like that. And Paul, these guys know what they're talking about. It's really great we could just sit back and just let them do the whole thing themselves.
Yeah.
To be honest. So it's great. We definitely want to have you return, Paul.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
I know I'm badgering you with all my training questions 24/7. So
no, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, I mean, that's all I got. Either way, I'll be live on my channel on Wednesday if anybody wants to come tune on that. If not, then back on Monday here for the Pulse.
There you go. All right. Thanks again, Paul. You're the man. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you all next Monday.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to you guys on the Reddit community. I need to get more involved. Thank you guys.
Heck yeah, I love it.